Overwatch is about to introduce their 45th hero, but what do we know about Lupa? Let's have a look. Slowly we're nearing the end of what has been an eventful year, just in general, for me personally, and definitely for Overwatch. And as we near that end of the year, we're also drawing closer to another hero release. Hero 45. Good God. Now last year we had very little to go off to try and figure out who was going to be the season 14 hero, which turned out to be Hazard. They kept us on our toes right till the end. And back in the day I made plenty of videos on all the speculation that was going on. This year, however, it is slightly different. The Overwatch team has actually been teasing this hero since all the way back in February at the Spotlight event. During that live stream, they had this little doodle in the background, which turned out to be Hero 45. The same doodle they did for Hazard back in the BlizzCon presentation in 2023. It's basically the internal profile picture that they use during development. They make it for all the heroes. But at that point, we knew very little. We only saw this armored character with a big sword. That's all we saw. But that had people's imagination running wild. Are we getting a new melee hero? Then later in the year, when they launched Stadium in Season 16, players noticed some interesting things on the Arena Victoria map, which is a Stadium exclusive map. Very beautiful. See, there was a sword that was displayed in one of the side wings of each spawn room. It was next to all of the other arena weapons that we already knew about. It was a pretty short sword, and it had a wolf symbol on there. Oh, now under that sword, there were the Roman numerals 45, hinting at Hero 45. But it got even better. Outside of the spawn room, on one side at least, you could find a poster, and it had those same Roman numerals, 45. It showed the silhouette of a female gladiator that had that same sword on her shoulder. And below it, it said La Lupa della Ritorsione, which turned out to be Italian for the she-wolf of retaliation, which actually told us way more than you would think. For one, that sword that we saw in the spawn room is indeed tied into that hero. Pretty obvious. We also learned that the hero is female. The hero is most likely Italian. The hero is a gladiator. And finally, that hero has a score to settle. But with who exactly? Well, at that point, that was pretty unclear. But not for long. Now, something else that stands out for me now, looking back, and that actually is quite important, is that there's a lot of red in her teaming. I'll explain what that all means in a second. The next big hint towards the new hero was in a recent comic, Reconciliation. It actually tells the story of what happened right after the end of that cliffhanger that we saw in the last PvE mission that was released in 2023. We saw Zenyatta being captured. Turns out they brought him to Ramatra, which is a moment that most likely initially was going to pan out very differently if PvE had continued. But in this more retconned timeline, it is actually the end of the invasion and the end of Ramatra's role as the big bad guy. I made a whole video about that like a few weeks ago. Go check it out. But if the invasion is over, who are the bad guys now? Well, in that same comic, Ramatra admits that it was a poor choice on his part to be working with Talon. That they're kind of driven by questionable motives. Well, duh. And he added that they have their own problems. Problems that soon will become the world's problems. And as he is saying that, we see that same figure that we saw on the poster standing in front of a huge explosion with that same sword again. Although, it looked a little bigger. Which tells us that Hero 45, aka Lupa, is that problem that Ramatra was talking about. The problem for Talon that would eventually become the world's problem. Yeah. So is it safe to state that she's going to be the next villain? Maybe. There are different ways that this can pan out. One thing is very clear, however. As I mentioned in that previous video, we're back to this whole faction war thing, where Talon is the big bad, but with a bit of nuance. See, Maximilian, for instance, he seems to be slowly taking a bit of distance from Doomfist's Talon. Now, either he will break with them, or he might just choose to remove Doomfist as the leader for Talon. Because those types of figures, those types of people, they generally don't back down. They play a game of chess, and they just move pieces where they need to have them. Very recognizable in these times. On top of that, there's a lot of other factions that are slowly stepping back into the limelight. Helix Securities, Fiskar, both of those have been mentioned quite a lot in recent story development. The Junker Queen remains ambitious. Emre is slowly starting to show up again. The Deadlock Gang is still up to shenanigans. Just say, there's plenty of moving parts. But yeah, Talon versus Overwatch is going to be the main dish for this meal. And Lupa, well, she's a problem for Talon. That is what Ramatra tells us at least. Now, she is out for retaliation, according to that title. So I'm thinking that Talon maybe harmed her in some way and she's out to get someone. That would sound plausible, right? However, I actually noticed two things. One, Ramatra ended that sentence by saying that she would eventually become a problem for the whole world. Not a small detail. That tells me that she's not going to be the type of hero that is spurred by past grief and out to demolish anything evil in this world. She's not looking for balance. She's a gladiator. She calls herself the she-wolf. I think she has a plan. On top of that, she's not only the she-wolf, she's the she-wolf of retaliation. Now notice that it didn't say the she-wolf of revenge. It's not just a fancy word. There definitely is a difference between retaliation and revenge. Now what is the difference? Well, emotions. Revenge is emotional. Retaliation is more of a tit for tat, settling a score, the inevitable consequence to a series of actions. It's calculated. It's business. Now, if you add that to the fact that Talon has been known to have a lot of power struggles ever since they started, that becomes more interesting. I mean, it has gone through quite a few leaders just in the period that we've been following it in-game. There was Antonio Bertolotti. Remember him? We saw him getting thrown out of a window at the end of one of the story missions. He was succeeded by Augusto Viale, but he also got yeeted, not out of a window, but from a balcony, by the current leader for Talon, which is Doomfist. Now, Doomfist has a tight grip on Talon, no pun intended, but cracks have been showing lately. Well, maybe always. But yeah, Maximilian, as I said, is one example. Then there's Baptiste. He used to be Talon, he jumped ship. Sarba has always played a double role. Sigma has no idea what dimension he currently is in. And don't get me started on Moira. Come to think of it, it's actually a miracle that Talon gets anything done. So it might be that the new hero is going to make life very difficult for Doomfist. And what is going to be the result of that on the other end is something we'll have to find out. One thing that kind of confirmed that theory, that idea for me personally, was at the end of the latest developer update they did, Miranda, the lead narrative designer for Overwatch, got redacted as she was trying to spill the beans on the new hero. And especially the way she got redacted by this sentence on the screen, which was in Italian, a bit of a classic Italian style to that font. And then Ren walked into the picture saying that she had no idea where they were taking her. That all felt very shady, much like Talon. And then there was the whole red teaming of that scene. Red is Talon's color, always has been. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, much like the red that we saw in Lupa's poster and that we see in her sword. Now, talking about her sword, I think it is safe to state that Lupa is going to be a melee hero at this point. But people seem to think, or at least hope, that she's going to be a tank hero. I'm not sure, guys. Why? Well, for one, at the end of the Season 19 trailer, we got a bit of a teaser for Lupa, another one. We got to see her legs, but above all, more importantly, we got to hear her voice.
Ready yourselves for war!
And she kind of sounds like a burly woman. Yeah, I don't know if that is the word I want to use, burly. Let me just say that she doesn't give off Juno vibes, or Ash vibes for that matter. She's more like the Junker Queen or Zarya type. Which might have you thinking that, yeah, she's going to be a tank. Those are two tanks. The thing is, we already have a Junker Queen in Overwatch. And she also is a melee tank with the axe and the knife. So what I'm saying here is that I think she is a little too close to the Junker Queen to be made into another tank. But that is just my interpretation. However, during the Halloween event, we have this game mode, the Haunted Masquerade, where you have to put on the mask of a certain hero to give yourself some of their powers. And all of those masks are in the spawn room. You can pick them before the game starts. However, there is one mask that we found in the middle of almost every single map. And it's reachable for 2 teams. It's dead in the middle, somewhere on the side. And that mask is for Lupa, the new hero. It will give you extra movement and attack speed by doing weapon and ability damage. Now, generally these masks are some type of reflection of that hero's general kit. And if I look at this buff, that is such a DPS mask. If you don't believe me, put it on with Reinhardt. You'll see. I don't know, guys. Back when they started kind of teasing Doomfist, before they were going to release him, everybody was so certain he was going to be a tank. It turned out to be a DPS. And the community was up in arms. But then at the start of Overwatch 2, they made him into a tank, and now everybody wants him to be a DPS again. Anyways, my point being, I'm not sure. I wouldn't get too attached to any of the ideas. It is very possible that she's going to be a DPS. A DPS with a big sword. A sword that apparently can grow. Because like I said, it is definitely a lot bigger in that comic scene than it is in the poster, or as we see it hanging in the spawn room. An extending sword, which might be part of her kit. There's much you can do with that. I think most of our minds are probably going to kind of go into Magic's direction from Marvel Rivals when it comes to a big sword holding lady. We'll see. By the way, Lupa is not going to be her name. That is the code name like Aqua was or Space Ranger. What her actual name is going to be is yet unclear. There are definitely some leaks out there, both about her name and the lore, but that is always the case. And for one, they're very hard to verify. And two, to be fair, for me the most important reason is I'd rather have Blizzard kind of roll out the details as they see fit. They have a plan and they want us to have fun. We have personally been asking to get more of these kind of teaser releases where they show elements of those heroes in game in the weeks and months before the actual release. We have been asking them for more lore development and to see the story evolve. So we're not going to ruin that by, I don't know, leaking stuff. That's silly. We'll find out soon enough. See, Lupa is coming in Season 20, which is set to start on December 9th. However, we won't have to wait that long to actually get to try the new hero, because as always, there's going to be a test weekend during Season 19, the current season, which is always in the second half of the season. Now, the mid-season update for Season 19 is dropping November 11th, and I'm expecting the test event to happen right after that, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, which is not that far away. I mean, November starts next weekend. Now, before that, I hope to see some more lore teasers in-game. Maybe some comics, something. And as soon as that happens, I'll make a video about it. So make sure to subscribe. But tell me, who do you think this new hero is going to be? Is it going to be the Lone Ranger type of deal? Is it going to be a Talon member? Or is she going to be Talon's worst nightmare? Let me know in the comments. Or come tell me during my streams over on twitch.tv/DeemziesTV. See you there. For now, however, that was it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank my patrons and YouTube members. You too can become a member over on patreon.com/theomnicpost and right here on YouTube to unlock exclusive rewards. If you have a few minutes left, maybe check out one of my other videos. But above all, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye bye.